Joining us from Cleveland is John Petkovic, a journalist and first-generation Serbian-American. Also in New York with us, Shirley Cloyes, Balkan Affairs Advisor to the Albanian American Civil League. So let me first get reaction from the two of you on the airstrikes today. John?
Well, I think that they're bad for America and for Serbia because I think it's a violation of international law. I think it violates the UN Charter, and it violates even the NATO Charter. And I think what Clinton is doing is going in there saying, we're going to bomb you, but we're not declaring war so that we can put our peacekeepers on the ground. And meantime, he's hoping that Milosevic will give in. And the problem is, the question is not about Milosevic giving in. Milosevic may not have support by all the Serbs, but Kosovo is a part of Serbia, and I think that the Serbs will never give it up.
Shirley?
No one is happy about bombing, of course, but this bombing, tragically, is long overdue. Albanians have been under a brutal occupation for 10 years in Kosova, and we all know what has happened for the past year, and it's a very welcome sign that we're finally saying in the international community that we're going to stop Slobodan Milosevic's genocidal war across Europe. And I want to comment on this issue of violation of international law related to territorial integrity. It's well established by the Helsinki Accord and other international conventions that respect for territorial integrity goes hand in hand with the respect of a nation towards human rights, and especially in the case of ethnic minorities, although Albanians don't like that term, by the way. They're more than 90% of the population of Kosova. But when that respect for rights are denied, and on approaching the scale of genocide, then no international law or legal scholar will tell you that territorial integrity is what is important.
Is this going to become American policy in the future, as well as this reaction to specifically this situation?
Could I answer that?
Yeah, go ahead, John.
You know, the problem is this, is that once they go in there and they're going to tell them, they expect, the American calculation here is that Milosevic, after a few days of bombing, will say no, well, I'll give in, no more, please, and they'll let American troops in there. Now, why should American troops then go in as peacekeepers after they've just been bombing a country? I mean, there's no logic to that, and it's going to mean that they're going to be there for years, or they're going to be picked off one by one. And, you know, the country has, any sovereign country has a legitimate right to defend itself from occupiers. And after bombing the Serbs for days, and if NATO goes in, they will be an occupation force. And according to all norms, they would have a right to defend themselves against the occupier. Why should American troops be put in that situation? I really don't understand that.
I was really, Shirley, I'm sorry, did I interrupt?
Yeah, may I respond to this?
Yes.
If you want to talk about occupiers, then again, I think we have to talk about the occupation of Kosova by Serbia for the past 10 years in violation of international law has been the most brutal occupation in Europe since the Nazi era. And what we've seen with Slobodan Milosevic, from Slovenia to Croatia to Macedonia to Bosnia to Kosova, and by the way, he began his war in Kosova on a platform of anti-Albanian racism. What we've seen is a march across Europe in a quest for greater Serbia that has caused already in Bosnia the deaths of 300,000, 2 million refugees, and now we all know about the carnage and tragedy in Kosova. If this march were allowed to be continued, not only would we have a Balkan regional war, but we would have a wider European conflict. So I think it's very premature to talk about troops in Kosova right now, but it is not premature to say the international community has a moral obligation to stop the spread of genocide, and the questioner before was very right to mention the genocide in Rwanda. We're quiet about it. Hopefully we won't be. We have an international war crimes tribunal that is to bring the perpetrators of the massacre in Rwanda and also the perpetrators of the massacres in Kosovo and Bosnia to the Hague for trial and indictment. And we must pursue this.
Well, I know that Serbs in this country and elsewhere are very angry about the way they are portrayed in the press, that they, well, frankly, have a public relations problem. They always seem to come off as the bad guy, as the aggressor. Is that justified?
Where were the newspapers to write about Serbs that have been attacked over the weekend, 4 Serb policemen? Where were they to be talk about 100 villages that have been cleaned, small villages in Kosovo over the last 6 months? they weren't there, because it does not play into the Clinton administration's notion of black versus white. By doing that, they can create a black versus white picture, demonize the Serbs, say it's all about Slobodan Milosevic, go in there and bomb. They're bombing Slobodan Milosevic, not bombing the Serbian people, of course. It's all nice and clean, and drop some cruise missiles from 2 miles away, kill people, and don't put your boys in harm's way. Rewrite the borders of Serbia, destroy Serbia by saying Kosovo is no longer part of Serbia. Say that the Bosnian Serbs do not have a right to self-determination, though the Albanians do. I mean, and it's really a one-sided policy that's, in the end, bad for America, because it ignores reality up there.
Ralph?
Bobby, let me just comment on that in this way, and that is to say that I think Slobodan Milosevic, he may recognize this himself, may have missed a boat some years ago. He decided that he was not going to make his own case to the world, and you'll notice you don't see very many interviews with Mr. Milosevic. That's not because we're not asking. We've asked many, many times for an opportunity to talk with him. He controls the news media in his own country and uses the news media to portray his actions, the actions of his government, in a certain way. He has not taken advantage of the opportunity CNN and other news organizations would provide to allow him to explain his own policies to the world.
John, how much support does he have within Serbia?
He has, within his own elite, his wife has an elite that rules much of the government, but amongst the population. But, you know, by bombing Serbia, it only destroys any notion of an opposition, because they're saying they're bombing Milosevic. They're not bombing
Shirley,
Milosevic.
let me get a final word from Shirley.
May I come on that? When 100,000 Serbs a week in Belgrade demonstrated a few years ago to bring down Milosevic, no one helped them. And we now have to support the Serbian democratic forces. We should not certainly demonize the Serbian people. But Mr. Milosevic has succeeded not only in destroying ethnic Albanians, but destroying a democracy, controlling the media and the universities. That's why we don't know about the opposition.
All right, I'm sorry. That is all the time we have. Thanks to all of our guests. Stay with CNN as we continue our coverage of the NATO attack with Lou Waters and Natalie Allen. We'll see you tomorrow.